Hey guys, it's Jane. I'm here today to finally do my Booktubeathon wrap up. If you watched my video yesterday, you will know that I was thinking that spring might be here, but let me tell you today, winter's back. It's back with a vengeance. I've got the heater on behind me and there's no light and we're just going to push through as best we can. I read all 7 books that you were supposed to read during Booktubeathon. I've already talked about the Batgirl trade. I've talked about Farewell My Lovely. I mentioned Joshua that I read. I also read Adventure Time Volume 6, which I mentioned briefly in my videos. I was not actually entirely joking. This is hilarious. This is an excellent volume of Adventure Time. You don't really need to read these in order, I don't think. You can just jump in. I think this is truly one of those ones that it's a toss-up, is if it's funnier to my 9-year-old son or funnier to me. But we were both rolling around the floor laughing, and I'm not going to tell you the joke that I thought was the funniest joke ever out of this one, which I garbled during my video wrap-up, but it is in there, so yeah, that's a big wrap. I also finished Animal Farm by George Orwell. This is a really short little gem. I think it's about 90 pages actually, so you could read that in one sitting quite feasibly. I didn't, but you could. I read this as a child in school. I think I was 14 or so when I read it, and it was just a real sucker punch at the time. I really didn't enjoy that book. Reading it now as an adult, I entirely understand why it's considered to be a masterwork. It's so spare without being dry. It's just every word counts. It's like there's not a single extra sentence that doesn't need to be there. It's all working together for its purpose. For those of you who don't know, this is an allegory about the Russian Revolution, essentially. It's set in England. There's this farm where the animals, after their owner is particularly outrageous one day, drive him out and take over the farm and start running the farm themselves. They initially have a really good time with that because then not all of their produce is being taken away, so they can actually benefit from their work. But it doesn't take terribly long for things to start turning sour. It's sort of a tragedy and it's very emotionally impactful. I think it was probably, for me, when I first read it, was probably too much. The emotion of it is too much. And when you're sending a talking horse to the knackers, it was too much for me as a 14-year-old girl. But reading it now, I can completely understand why somebody could consider this their favourite book. It's just amazing. And it's a short read. And if you haven't read it, I would encourage you to have a look at it. The themes that come out of it are amazing. I also managed to finish Glenda Larke's The Lascar's Dagger, which was the one that I thought that I probably wouldn't get to. This is easily the longest book that I read during the Booktubeathon. It's 400 plus something pages. But I didn't actually have a problem getting through it at all because it is such a page turner. This is a fantasy. Our hero on the cover is a Witten priest at the beginning. He gets sort of nulled or something is what they called it, defrocked essentially at some point during the story, because apart from being a priest, he's also a spy and is forever getting himself in trouble. It's probably not especially original, but it's just really well done. There's some interesting magic system and the characterization is good. There's a princess who the spy falls in love with, but fairly soon we realise that she's not actually the romantic heroine of the piece. And I really liked that twist. I liked the fact that, you know, the farm boy falls in love with the princess, but then she turns out to be a manipulative bitch. And so, in fact, you're actually rooting for him and somebody else. So, yeah, it was a really good read. And the second one of these is out, but the third one is yet to be published. So I'm going to try and get the second one from my library. And, yeah, I'm enjoying that. The fourth book that I read since my Friday Reads wrap-up, which brings me up to date, is Judges. I feel like that was a bit of a cheat, but I realised I was further behind in my Bible read along than I thought, so I really needed to catch that up. So I read Judges And I read that all in one afternoon. Let me tell you, that was its own punishment, because it's probably not quite as grim as Joshua, but you know, that's a pretty high watermark. This was, again, really tough reading. There is some just awful stuff in Judges, but having said that, that is actually what you're supposed to take away from Judges. The overriding refrain from Judges is, this was when there was no king in the land and people just did whatever they wanted. You're actually supposed to think that they're all terrible people. So at least that part of it doesn't have the cognitive dissonance stuff that you do with Joshua, where you're supposed to be cheering for the ethnic cleansing that's going on. So that's what I read during Booktubeathon. I ticked off my 7 books and all the challenges. I managed to do all the challenges. So I'm a winner, yeah. But actually I have really quite mixed feelings about it. There was some great stuff. I'd not joined in any of these Booktube read-along things before, so this was my first experience of that, and I really loved the camaraderie, the feeling of community, and I'm glad that I joined Twitter beforehand, because people giving each other encouragement back and forth on Twitter, and seeing what other people are reading in actual real time on Twitter was really fun. That was a good part of it. But I actually honestly don't think I did any extra reading during that week than I would on a normal week. I specifically chose shorter books in the main so that I could get through 7. And then on the last day, after I finished the Lascar's Dagger and I had 2 more things, I needed to read 2 more things, I was sitting there feeling like I wanted something a bit more substantial, but I knew that I had to read 2 things to finish out the challenge. And so rather than starting a bigger book, a bit more meaty, I went for another graphic novel. And yeah, it's I think for me, at any rate, those reading challenges weren't sufficiently finely tuned, and they worked against the overall, for me, they worked against the overall purpose, which was to encourage you to read more. So next year, I think what I'm going to do is I'm just going to pick some really honking great books and just go for it. Maybe not even necessarily try to reach all of the reading challenges, but just try and push myself to read more, because I think that's supposed to be the spirit of the thing. And there are a few people whose videos I've been watching who just did that, who picked really big books or whatever. And I was sitting there thinking, that is what I should have been doing. I should have been doing that, the grown-up version of Booktubeathon, rather than just trying to tick off the tasks. Anyway, that was me. That's what I have to say. I hope you're all well. And, oh, no, this is what I'm going to say. I don't think I'm going to be able to do a Friday Reads this week, because I've got a doctor's appointment Friday morning. Maybe I will get a late one in on Saturday. So if you don't see a Friday Reads from me this week, that's what's been going on. I haven't forgotten you. I haven't. I hope you're well, and I'll talk to you later. Bye.